Good morning and welcome to the garden. So since this is my very first official YouTube video tour of the garden, I thought that I would just give you a little bit of a background about where I'm located and about the garden. My garden is located in northwest Iowa, which is zone 5. So typically we have very hot summers. In fact, yesterday it was about 95 degrees, but the humidity was so high that it felt well over 100. And our winters are typically very cold and snowy. So we definitely see all 4 seasons. This garden is a first-year garden, and I guess you could technically call it an urban garden. This garden is located downtown right next to my photography studio, and the lot itself is about 30 by 50 feet wide and is in between 2 buildings right downtown in my small town in Iowa, and it is enclosed by a cedar fence that I just finished putting up this year. The center part behind me, which you can see the sunflowers, which is on the very east end of the bed, is all vegetables, and then the north and the south sides of the garden are my cottage garden areas. So I'll show you a little bit of that too. Before I planted the garden up this year, it was just an empty lot full of weeds. So we got rid of all the weeds, put in a little bit of new dirt, tilled everything up, and then planted the spaces. The dirt was nice and black, so we haven't used any soil amendments yet, but I do have a compost pile started that I will be adding to the dirt in the fall. So it's actually a different day now. When I finished shooting the other part in front of my sunflowers, we had a rain shower move through, and then after that it got so humid that I just decided to finish everything a different day. So at the front of the garden are all of my tomatoes. And right now I have 10 Roma tomato plants and I have 1 Lemon Boy, which is a yellow tomato plant. The Roma tomatoes we use for canning, and then the Lemon Boy is a yellow tomato plant. Yellow tomatoes tend to be a little less acidic, so I always like to add a little variety into our tomatoes in the garden each year. Believe it or not, I have pruned these tomatoes twice already, and they are just growing like crazy. I even have a pumpkin growing over top of them. So next to all of the tomatoes, we do have a couple of pepper plants. We have 1 cayenne and 1 jalapeno. My husband likes to do a lot of hot sauce making and pickling of peppers in the summer, so the peppers are really more his thing, which is why I just have 2 varieties growing here. We have about 10 other plants growing at our home garden, which I'll show you at the end of the video. In here next to the tomatoes are all of our potatoes. Now I have 10 hills of Yukon Gold potatoes here, and we had another 6 at home. Typically I'll wait till fall to dig all of my potatoes, but this year I've been digging them as we've gone through the summer, just so we can enjoy them as they grow. These were planted a little later, and so I'll probably wait a while to dig these yet. I do want to have some potatoes to store over the winter though. And above me you can see the sunflower. I probably haven't planted a mammoth sunflower for 2 years in my garden, so this one just came up on its own this year. And if you can see, at every juncture, there is a sunflower bloom. I have never had one grow like that before, so when I noticed it was doing that, I had to keep it just because it was growing that way. So this side of the garden, right in the center, is all of my vine crops, and as you can see, they are super healthy, and I pretty much don't have a pathway anymore. In this area, I have 4 different types of pumpkins planted. I have jack-o'-lantern, a mini pumpkin, a white pumpkin, and the green pumpkins, Jardale. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I also have 1 watermelon plant. I have a hill of watermelon seeds. I have 3 butternut squash and 1 cantaloupe. At this point, they're all just kind of mixing together. Here you can see a watermelon mixed in with the cantaloupe. I've been looking underneath all of the leaves, and there's fruit setting on everything so far. This area of the garden is also one of my cottage garden spots in the garden. And this year I planted a whole bunch of foxgloves, which I planted 2 types. One is a Dalmatian peach, which bloomed this year, and the other kind is a cream color, and that will flower next year. But I planted a lot of different zinnia seeds, as you can see, and they're coming up nicely. Once things get a little more developed this fall and I have a few more perennials planted, I plan to do a full cottage garden tour video. vine crops in the middle of the garden is our sweet corn patch. And we did 2 different plantings of sweet corn. This one is almost ready, and each year we plant an ambrosia sweet corn. And it's a 2-colored corn, yellow and white, super sweet. Most of it we eat fresh, but we do a lot of freezing for the winter as well. And right behind the sweet corn is my sunflower patch. Now those are almost done, so this weekend I'm probably going to be ripping those out, and then that area is going to be for fall crops. I plan to plant a fast germinating cucumber and a zucchini to go there, along with some seedlings that I have inside, which I'll show you too. So this was my green bean patch. I had them all harvested already, which is a good thing because obviously my pumpkin vine crops have totally overtaken everything. This is the spot I was telling you where I was going to put my winter crops. All of these sunflowers are going to be ripped out this weekend, and then in this spot I plan to plant fast germinating cucumbers and zucchini. I'll have a trellis built for that, and then underneath will be cabbage, Brussels sprouts, and broccoli and cauliflower. This corner of the garden probably has the least attention of anything so far this year. My plans for the fall are to put some sort of pergola structure in this corner for shade, but right now this is where all of our herbs are living. I also have 2 fruit bushes growing. This is a blueberry, and over here is a raspberry bush, which apparently is getting eaten by something. My blueberry did not produce anything this year, but I did have raspberries from the raspberry bush. Here's a peek at my seedlings for fall. Right now I have cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, and Brussels sprouts planted. So now I'm at home and I wanted to show you what our garden here in our backyard looks like. The garden here is a raised bed and it's probably about 10 by 20 in size, maybe a little bit bigger. And to be perfectly honest, since we built it a couple years ago, we really haven't had the best luck with crops in it. And I think it's due to the soil. We had some nice black dirt brought in, but I just think that it didn't have enough nutrients. So this fall, after our fall crops are done, I plan on amending the soil and really working in some compost and probably mulching it really well for the winter. And hopefully next spring we have a better crop. The garden itself right now is in part shade and part sun. And so I'm gonna be doing shots of the different vegetables at different times of the day, and I'll do a voiceover just so you can see everything best. Right next to me, I do have a few herbs planted in pots. I have chives, rosemary, and oregano, and I just started these plants that I had bought at a garden center a couple weeks ago, and so I'm hoping by fall they really fill out. Also, check out my hydrangea. How beautiful is that? Almost in bloom. And my lantanas, which are great pollinators. So like I said, the garden in our backyard is a raised garden bed. It's 12 inches deep, and we just had black dirt put in it, so I really think it needs amending. There are 2 spots that I did amend recently. This one where I planted green beans, and then this next spot I amended for carrots and kale. And I amended it by putting in a organic raised bed soil, and I think it really helped a lot. The tomatoes in this bed are doing great. We have 2 Jet Stars, 1 Celebrity, and 1 Cherokee Purple. We trimmed them back quite a bit this year, which I think is really helping. Nothing is turning red yet, but there is a ton of fruit on every plant. This is my Cherokee Purple, which looks the worst out of all 3. It has a lot of leaf curl, but it actually finally has a tomato on it. Thank goodness. The Jet Star and Celebrity tomatoes we'll mostly use for slicers for BLTs. My strawberries are really looking good. These are in the east corner of my garden and were planted last fall from roots that I got from my uncle's strawberry patch. I did get quite a few strawberries off of them this year, and as you can see, they're really starting to branch out. So I'm hoping that this whole corner will spread out and I'll have one really nice square strawberry patch next year. I also hope to have another little patch up at the studio garden. This is a second round of green beans that I planted. I already had 1 full harvest from my other garden, and this second group should be ready towards the end of the month. Here's the start of our pepper plants. Like I said, we have about 10 different varieties here at home, My husband likes to make his own hot sauce from them and pickle them. We have chilies, cayennes, jalapenos, and I do have one yellow bell pepper that I'll eat. I don't really like the super hot peppers. Our cucumbers are really starting to put on some cucumbers. They're branching out nicely. They had a little bit of a slow start because we had such a cool spring, but they're finally starting to vine out. There's my zucchini plant that was also a slow starter this year. My husband makes a lot of pickles, and so these two plants that we have are pickling cucumbers and not slicers. I plan to plant a slicing cucumber plant for the fall. And there's our zucchini, which is finally putting on fruit too. So thank you so much for watching my very first garden tour video. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, check out my Instagram feed, and watch for the next post. We'll see you next time.